Right now, 63% of sellers in the Denver metro area are handing out concessions to their buyers that they definitely refused to do a few years ago. That's 2 out of 3 homes that are trying to literally incentivize buyers to come in their home and make a purchase. And it's not just about concessions, it's price cuts, it's rate buy downs, it's inspection credits that sellers would probably have laughed at in 2021. So today, I want to really walk you through what's happening in the market right now because the headlines don't always tell the full story. Then, after, we will talk through the bigger market picture and I will bring it down to the listing level. I'll also give you some secrets about how to tell which specific listings are stale and where you might be able to get a really good deal. And if you're a seller, you're not going to want to miss the part at the end where I talk about the tricks that I think will help you be in the top half of all the homes that sell very quickly for a fantastic price. I'm Heather O'Leary. I'm your Colorado homegirl, and I'm on the Denver Market Trends Committee for the Realtor Association, DMAR. I've been helping people buy and sell homes in the Denver area and make really smart decisions for the last 7 years. Supply and demand drive prices. So let's talk specifically about demand first. Demand has actually been relatively steady for the last 15 years, except for higher interest rates as of late 2022, all the way on through now in 2026. Pending home sales are down close to 20% from pre-COVID Denver real estate market, and month over month, we're down 5%. So I would say this is what we consider a new normal. There are just fewer people purchasing homes in the area right now. And that lower demand becomes even more important when you look at how many homes there are to choose from. And this is so interesting because when you move into the supply section or the active listings for sale, and we talk about the competition that's out there for a home seller, it's very close to double. There were about 14,000 listings for sale in the month of June, and only about 4,600 of those were under contract. So you're talking about so many options out there for fewer buyers. And when buyers have more choices, there's something interesting that happens. There's a popular psychologist, I do have a degree in psychology also, Barry Schwartz, who has a philosophy called the paradox of choice. And the interesting part is when there are too many options for buyers in any market, whether it is just jars of jelly on the shelf at the grocery store, cars on a lot, or homes for sale in a metro area, buyers can kind of stall out because there are too many choices. It's like the analysis paralysis problem. Honestly, I've had this conversation with many of my buyer clients, including actually some of you who are watching the market right now and probably watching this video also. And I really do think it comes down to fear of making the wrong decision. So I am going to come back to that fear in just a minute because I think the history is actually very helpful here. Stick around also because I'd like to share some very interesting stats about what happened during the Great Recession, which was literally caused by the housing crisis. Those stats might actually help you feel better. But let's get back to the facts about Denver specifically right now. Here in July of 2026, competition is through the roof. We just talked about the number of homes for sale. Trying to sell means you literally have to make your home stand out, whether it's with discounts or marketing. More about that later. Now, here's where the market gets more complicated. The median days on market is only 18. That means that 50% of the homes that are selling now are selling in less than 3 weeks. Way more homes for sale, less buyers, and it's still only taking 3 weeks in order to sell half of the homes. Denver homes are actually selling. And actually, I will just tell you, I just put 2 homes under contract in the month of June in less than that median days. What's really interesting, and we had this discussion at our Market Trends Committee last week, our entire report is actually themed around this topic. Homes that are turnkey and that have buyers who have taken care of all of the details from inspection items all the way through to modernizing the updates, and that are also priced right and have the perfect location are selling very, very fast. And 18 days, I would say, is very fast. Now, the average is 39 days. What do we know about the difference between median and average? The average is pulled up significantly by the outliers, which are those homes that are taking quite a bit longer to sell than the 18 median days. So the median tells us what's happening with the homes that are moving, but the average tells us a different story. The fact that the average is so significantly different than the median means that there are tons of homes that are lingering on the market. For some people, 60 days can feel pretty normal, or even closer to 6 months if a seller is very patient and doesn't mind the anxiety and stress of lingering on the market. And that's where timing really starts to matter. The problem with lingering on the market is that prices definitely have a seasonal fluctuation to them. I want to share exactly where we are. I spent quite a bit of time analyzing this section because it was actually just very interesting to me. So first, let's talk about what has happened and what happens pretty consistently over the years. If you look back on this chart from 2009 up until now, you'll see that prices go up, up, up in the spring and then pull back the later part of Q3 and Q4. This is actually very accurate for us in the last couple years, especially in the COVID years. And I will say that the exception is that our prices now have quite a bit of volatility. When we look at the baseline monthly price changes, but we take out what I call the COVID crazy years where prices increased incredibly dramatically, you can actually see the average monthly price changes. Anything above the line means prices are going up. You'll see prices rise January through June, and then they peak out and start to pull back, maybe picking up a little bit more in October. I've always said that I will buy my next house in September for this exact reason. This is when you can get very steep discounts. So start talking to me right now if you want to jump into this market. This is why I think a lot of people misunderstand the summer market. They think that the summer months are the busiest seasons of the year, but that's not accurate. We've actually just passed our slowest time of the year other than the holidays. That's July 4th. And people are traveling. Everyone is deep in the heart of summer, playing, enjoying the beautiful Colorado mountains that we all moved here for, right? It is definitely a slower season for my sellers. But for the buyers, this is where the opportunity really starts to show up. When I have buyers in the market during this season, I'm like, yep, you are going to get deals right now. And people don't necessarily realize this. So let's connect the seasonal patterns that we've seen for the past 15 years to what prices are actually doing now. Prices are relatively flat. Yes. From June of last year to June of this year, we're right around $740,000 for the average price in Denver, $615,000 for the median, and that's also relatively flat for the last few years. What's very interesting about this is we've actually seen pretty dramatic fluctuations. From January to June of this year, prices went up by 11%, but that number needs some context, and all numbers really do, and that's the problem, honestly, with listening to the news, because they take one number, they don't compare it to anything else, and they run with it and write an entire article about it without really understanding it. I was a math teacher. I know about numbers. I have a degree in math, and I know how to explain them and help my clients understand the market correctly. So let's go back. The 11% appreciation for this year is just what has happened on the upswing. And that's not going to be our total year-to-date appreciation because prices are about to pull back very significantly. Last year, we saw close to 9% price decrease from July to December, which has left us relatively flat at about a 2% price appreciation. And honestly, this is what I think is so interesting. I do think it's really crazy that we have very high supply, low demand, down 25% lower. Why in the world would our prices be going up? Well, there's lots of reasons. And I will tell anybody who's watching this that the market is not crashing, okay? That is not what is happening right now. In fact, the fact that we have flat to positive-ish 2% appreciation right now shows you the strength and the resiliency of the Denver market. It's an amazing place to live. Incomes are relatively high here. And honestly, sellers who are trying to sell right now are not in such a desperate situation that they are going to sell at such a huge loss. And I know that the title of this video is that sellers are desperate, because they are, but they're not like so desperate that they're gonna take like $50,000 more off of the purchase price if they've already taken a whole bunch else off and done a ton of other repairs. I work with those sellers and I respect that. I spend time chatting with them about their possible options, and very often I suggest, I just did this last week. I spent hours working and I literally suggest to them that it's better to rent out the property than to take a huge loss, because these are people that I care about. Every one of my clients, I want them to make the best possible decisions for themselves and their families and their financial future. So if you are a buyer, here's how I would translate all of that. What should you expect if you are looking to buy in the later months of the year? Well, you're going to expect price drops, homes lingering on the market. You can breathe and take your time to make a decision, and you'll definitely be able to negotiate a better deal, which I'll tell you more about what that looks like later. Now, before we get all the way into how to actually spot these deals, I want to point out the market is not behaving exactly the same everywhere. The odds of selling during this time last year are very, very different depending on the type of property and the location, and of course, the price point. Denver Metro is very large. There are a lot of different areas and they have different characteristics, of course. For example, property type. A home that has an HOA and is attached, like a townhome or a condo, is going to take a lot longer to sell. A buyer can afford about $10,000 more in purchase price for every $50 of HOA. So let's do a little bit of math. A $300 a month HOA, that's $60,000 more in the purchase price of the home that buyer could afford, which means they are much more likely to be looking at a single family home than an attached property if the HOA is way too high and doesn't have the amenities to go along with it. Now, next, price point also really matters. It takes a lot longer to sell at the higher price ranges because you're looking for a very specific type of buyer. In the $1 million price range, we're talking about a 40% chance of selling within the first month, which honestly I think is pretty good odds. Whereas at the lower price point, they sell quicker because they are entry level, like $400,000 to $600,000. They're closer to a 47% chance of selling in the first month. And that's because there's just so many first-time home buyers who are ready to make a purchase, or people who are moving from out of state and they have a little bit of sticker shock because they could probably get, a mansion with a couple of acres somewhere in Iowa for the same price. And then, of course, location matters. Denver is a very beautiful place to live, and that's why it's priced so much higher. You'll notice it takes a lot longer to sell, though, in central Denver, Denver proper, like the downtown area, Inglewood, areas of Lakewood, Federal Heights, Thornton, North Glen, Aurora, Greenwood Village, and parts of Castle Rock. But there are also some very hot areas, specifically Littleton, Arvada, Superior, Broomfield, couple other areas of Aurora that are being built up and are moving a lot quicker. I actually have my next video coming out about areas that are cooling and then some of the hotter areas. And this is why data matters. And I want to be really clear here. This heat map will tell you what areas you can get better deals in, but you're not going to just buy a home in any place just because you're getting a better deal if you don't like that place, right? And I think that's actually a really bad idea. It's hard to figure out where you want to live in Denver. I know a ton of you are interested in the numbers and the data, and that's why you're watching my videos. And I do really like to talk about the numbers, but where you actually choose to live is literally the most important factor in how happy you are going to be in that home. Numbers are not everything. And so I have both the spreadsheet and data part of the decision making, but I've also developed this really fun area quiz, and you put a bunch of your information in about your lifestyle and your preferences, and it gives you a few ideal locations that will actually really fit what you're looking for in a home. So once you know where you actually want to live, we can start looking for opportunities in those areas. So I want to move into the next section, and this is my secret hints about how I figure out if a listing is sale and whether you as my buyer and client can get a really great deal. The first one is the very small price reductions each week, like, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000 here and there. And really that's honestly not going to move the needle on getting it sold. But what it does do is it tells you that they are sitting there waiting for an offer, even though they haven't dropped their price significantly. That's honestly very different from how I approach pricing with my own sellers. As a listing agent, I am not going to let my sellers do that. Instead, I am suggesting that they wait so I can protect their potential profit and allow them to pass a few specific markers like median days on market, total showings needed to get a contract, and the number of weekly showings compared to their listings in that specific market. And while it might be really difficult to wait as my seller, if we are priced what I think is right, I don't want you to just keep shaving 10 grand off here and there, because it's not necessarily going to bring you the right buyer, and it could just be cutting into your profit. The second clue is one that buyers should really pay attention to. One I really do think is a great trick is advertising seller concessions. If a seller has something in their listing description about offering seller concessions, they're offering to give you money to help you pay for your closing costs or buy down the interest rate. That means they are really ready to sell that property and they're willing to negotiate with you in some way. For example, I recently had a client who purchased a home where the seller was advertising they would pay the HOA fee, which was honestly not very much. It was like $6,000 a year. And we ended up asking for $10,000, and we got that in concessions in addition to another $6,000 for inspection related items. And that all helped her buy down the interest rate almost a full percentage point. So I think this is actually a really great strategy, and it does tell you that there's room to negotiate and that it's not a seller that's really completely stuck on their price. Okay, number 3, having a new agent. Like when a listing expires and then they come back with a brand new agent, new pictures, new marketing, that definitely shows that a seller is very serious. They're probably blaming their agent, but you know what actually happened is, unless the agent made a whole bunch of mistakes by not pricing it right from the beginning, or having very bad like iPhone pictures, or not having pre-inspections done, then it probably was the price that was the issue. But having the whole new marketing kit and a brand new agent really shows that they're serious, because they've already been through this once and they're not going to put themselves through that stress again. So there's probably some room to negotiate, although they might have hit their bottom line by that point. And the last one I want to share with you is that something that you are not going to be able to see on your own, and that's looking at the fine print and speaking with the actual agent. And it seems kind of obvious and silly, but it is something that a lot of people overlook. The fine print, or the private remark, says a seller is motivated, is key to knowing that you can get a fantastic deal. And so when you shoot over a bunch of properties to me and we're going through them together, you're going to hear from me about which ones I think you can get a really great deal on, because it might make a big difference if you can get $20,000 or $30,000 off of a certain house and then maybe use that money to, I don't know, redo the flooring or throw some paint on, slap some paint on all the walls and make it look really great. And I also, if we are very interested in that property, I'm going to call the agent. I mean, on July 5th, this past weekend, I got 3 phone calls from a buyer's agent for one of my listings, and she told me that I was the only agent who picked up the phone, first of all. And second of all, I was able to really chat her through some of the potential issues a buyer might have about that property, and we got an offer. So having your buyer's agent connect with the listing agent and have a conversation about what that seller is really looking for can help you, because maybe you can get a lot off the purchase price, but you can give them something else, like a quick close or limited inspection items or something like that. Now, I know I keep talking about how to get really great deals, but I want to define what a good deal here is in the Denver area. A seller is not going to give you $100,000 off the purchase price when they're listed at, say, the average of $700,000. Now, maybe that will be the case at the higher price points closer to the 2 million mark. Price drops to the tune of $100,000 are relatively common. However, that is not the case when you are right at the average. A seller will make an appropriate price reduction, and usually that's to the tune of about 6%. So if you are getting a deal that is 10% off of a listing, keep in mind that's like $70,000 off a $700,000 listing, I think that is a fantastic deal. And here is where I think that history is very helpful, and what I want to show you, the housing price index for Denver Metro versus the US during the Great Recession shows us something very important. Between 2007 and 2010, national home prices dropped incredibly, close to 25%. And that's what everybody is so scared of happening again, right? But we cannot make decisions based on fear without looking at the historical context. You'll see that Denver was relatively shielded from these very significant fluctuations. You can actually barely tell on the graph because Denver's price drop was closer to 10% during that time from peak to trough. Now, fast forward to today, to right now, what you'll notice is that our prices have actually been flat for 3 years, but we're seeing huge fluctuations. So as I mentioned, 11% increase from January to December this year. Well, what if you can get in on that 10% drop between now and the end of the year? That's what I'm talking about as far as a deal. A 10% is an incredible deal in the Denver market, and that's what I'll help you get. If you can capitalize on the 10% drop in Q3 and 4, you're getting the best deal I can possibly get you in the Denver market. And we're going to use that to help you buy down your interest rate so your payment is very comfortable and it doesn't hurt so much. And then you can go live the Colorado lifestyle. So don't miss out on a great deal just because you think things are unaffordable. It doesn't mean that every buyer out there should just go buy right now. I mean, it means that the conversation really needs to be specific to you. And if you want to have a longer conversation, I would really love to chat with you because it really is a personal thing. It's your price point, your preferences, your location. Let's really drill into the details with a real conversation. You can send me a text or you can schedule on my calendar. I actually want to sit down with you and find out what is the best option for you. And it's always about long-term goals and your payment. I'm going to make sure you get the best deal possible no matter what, but I do need to find out exactly what you're hoping for. So schedule on my calendar. Let's have a conversation. Okay, I want to flip around and I want to talk to all of my sellers. Thank you for being patient through this video. Maybe you skipped to the end. That would have been smart. We do have tricks that can help a seller put themselves into that top half of the market, the 0 to 18 days category. Because honestly, I know that packing is really, really stressful for people, but I do think that the waiting process could possibly be the most stressful part for any seller. And that's waiting for an offer. Selling is not for the faint of heart. It can cause a good amount of anxiety. And so it's really about setting your expectations correctly the first time. Nobody loves to hear some of this, but this is what matters the very most. Your price is probably about 5% less than what you think. So how do you do that? Waiting is okay, and it's my job to coach you with the stats based on your very specific niche market about how quickly homes are selling so you know what makes the most sense. I'm talking about the type of property, the location, the size, and what other buyers are actually looking at, like your competition. We need to make sure we're being guided by data. And while we're waiting on the data to really play out, the emotional side definitely matters too. You need to practice some version of self-care when the anxiety creeps in, because waiting is quite possibly the hardest part about selling a house in today's market. The second piece is about how the home is presented to the world. Excellence in marketing is really the key. I can't tell you how many pictures I look at. You need creative and professional photography, drone photography, video, lifestyle information about what the location brings to the buyer, possibly some kind of lot map or information about the area to show why this property is so amazing. And by the way, this has to be done on day one before you go to market. You need to have it perfect online because you have 2 seconds maybe to catch a buyer's attention. Having the right staging and the right marketing done correctly the very first time it goes on the market is super important. And finally, the buyers really need to have confidence that your home has been taken care of. Maintaining the house, having pre-inspection reports, sharing a seller property disclosure, showing the buyer that you have done a great job of taking care of the home. When they go look under the hood, they're going to find an absolutely beautiful taken care of property and they're going to love living there. And also, it prevents a lot of surprises if you already know the things that a buyer might want to negotiate for. So whether you're buying or selling in this market, the main point is it's not frozen. It's more strategic than it has been in years. I've covered a lot of information about what I think about the market and why it's shifting significantly right now, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. I'm Heather with eXp Realty, and I would love to chat with you some more. Check out my next video on areas people are moving out of because I think it's going to be very enlightening. And subscribe, or of course, schedule on my calendar if you want to chat some more.